I was a bit nervous to make this video for two reasons. Although the Clone Wars shelf series is probably my most requested video, I still haven't seen all of Clone Wars. That's right, I'm so late to the game that I didn't even know that Season 7 was happening until after it was over. As a kid, I was a big fan of the prequels, especially between Episode 1 and 2, but I didn't get back into Star Wars until the pandemic and The Mandalorian, and still have yet to watch all of the silly filler episodes of the Clone Wars, though I know I shouldn't call them that. The second reason I was nervous is that without all of the emotional, nostalgic attachment, I just don't get too excited over the clone figures. I really like the design of a lot of the named characters. The Clone Wars looks for Ahsoka, Maul, Obi-Wan, and Anakin are up there with my favorites, but clones themselves are probably my least favorite category of Star Wars to collect, so I wasn't too surprised to see that most of the figures on my Clone Wars shelf weren't clones at all. Maybe in the future I'll do a clone-focused shelf series video, but for today I just want to make the shelf that I personally want to look at, without worrying if it's right for anyone else. All of our collections belong to us alone, and I love that everyone's collection is a unique representation of their own mind and their own life, showcasing which parts of Star Wars are special to them for whatever reason that may be. So with that said, let's jump into today's video. First, we're going to start with Anakin, of course, in his Clone Wars look. This is the Target exclusive figure. This is a custom cape by BAC Customs and a custom head sculpt and paint job by Nuno. As always, any customizers that I mention in this video will be linked in the description below, so you can go check out their Instagrams. Next we have Ahsoka Tano, the character that started out as a very hated character that turned into a fan favorite, now having her own live-action TV show. I am really excited for the earlier season look of Ahsoka that we're getting from Hasbro, and that newer figure seems to solve some of the issues that this figure has, just such as joint stability and just flimsiness and difficulty in standing. By the way, this would be a great time to subscribe if you have been enjoying the video so far, and let me know in the comments below if making that clone-focused shelf series video is something that interests you. Speaking of clones, here we have Commander Cody. This is a custom head sculpt and paint job by Fett Clone. I actually typically display this head sculpt on my gray Bad Batch version of Commander Cody that I made. I really enjoyed his character arc in season 2 of the Bad Batch, and I just enjoy having something a little bit fresh on the shelf. But considering that this is the Clone Wars shelf series, I'm gonna go with his Clone Wars look here, and it's a much cleaner paint job because it's directly from the factory. This Count Dooku is also one of my favorite figures on my shelf. The Black Series absolutely knocked it out of the park, although this is a custom head by Nuno, and I actually think that this force-wielding hand is actually from a starting lineup figure. Of course, we unfortunately don't get many Force hands in the Black Series, so I had to make do. So this is the Asajj Ventress, and if you guys watch my channel, you know that I don't really like soft goods, so I replaced her weird little velvety skirt with the Dark Side Rey skirt that I painted up, and she still has a pretty good amount of articulation. The skirt is pretty flexible, and the slits in the side allow her to get into some pretty cool lightsaber wielding poses. This Bo-Katan is one of my favorites in my entire collection. The head was repainted by Uncle Sam's Cantina on Instagram, and her helmet sits on one of my Hexagon Stands, so all of the stands that you see in this video were designed by me. I know I mention them a lot, but if I don't, I get a bunch of questions about them in the comments. But if you have a 3D printer and you would like to make your own, you can get these files on my Patreon or my Etsy page, or you can buy them pre-built at the links below. Clone Wars Maul was probably one of the most anticipated and desired figures before it came out. This was always at the top of everyone's wish list. I do have a little bit of a matte spray on him here. I use Mr. Super Clear on a lot of my figures to get rid of that factory shine that a lot of the figures come with. But he's gonna go right here on the shelf next to Bo-Katan, kind of towards the baddies on the left. This Obi-Wan Kenobi figure is probably in my top 10 Black Series of all time. I just think it is absolutely flawless. This is definitely up there in the best face printing and head sculpts in the entire Black Series. You can tell I replaced the left hand here with his famous pose. I don't remember where I got this hand. I bought a whole pack of Stormtrooper hands, and it actually works great for this particular figure. Like I said, I really do love the Clone Wars looks for Obi-Wan and Anakin especially, and so I'm really happy that we finally have these figures in the Black Series. Here is another custom head by Fett Clone on the iconic Captain Rex. This, unfortunately, is one of the harder to find figures. After being available at Ollie's for $3, once the Clone Wars came to Disney Plus, it just completely shot up in value. I typically display this head also in my Bad Batch section on my custom Captain Rex that I made using the Cal Kestis poncho, as well as a custom hand to hold the helmet open like that. But of course I had to have the Clone Wars Rex on this shelf, and I just couldn't leave the stock head on him with this amazing head sitting on my shelf. So he's ready to take his place next to our other main characters of the show here, right in between Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. In one of the more touching moments of the Clone Wars finale, we see all of the 501st troopers repainting their helmets to honor Ahsoka. This figure, of course, needs to go right next to her on the shelf here. You could probably have several of these guys flanking her, but that would take up a spot for another figure. So this Aura Singh is actually one of the first customs that I ever did. I painted her body with Vallejo air paint. I do need to touch it up a little bit around the elbows where there's been some joint rub. This is definitely a super easy custom to do if you were getting into customizing. There is a great tutorial video on YouTube from another YouTuber about painting this figure if you want to go check that out. I was going to make one, but then I saw that someone else already made one, so I don't want to overlap too much. I've mentioned the Figuarts Yoda many times, and I've used this figure on almost every one of the shelf series that I've done because obviously Yoda shows up in a lot of media. I really can't recommend this figure enough. I know he goes for over $150 in the aftermarket now, but I think he will hold his value, and I don't think you'll regret buying that, even if you have to skip a few other Black Series figures in the meantime. This Mace Windu in the Clone Wars look is actually one of my favorite figures that involve soft goods. I'm actually really surprised at how well the soft goods behave on this. I think it's just due to where they sit on the figure and kind of where they're pinched. It just holds a nice shape, and one of the few soft goods that I can tolerate. Going back to my complete ignorance of the Clone Wars, I didn't know who Cad Bane was until I actually saw the figure come out. I'm really embarrassed to admit that, but he is seen here with his 3D printed Toto 360 that is also on one of the helmet stands. He's going to go over here all the way on the right side. Even though I don't have too many helmeted characters on my Clone Wars shelf, I always thought that the look of these Mandalorian Super Commandos with the Darth Maul look, also known as the Maul-Dalorians, was always really cool, and I think if Ahsoka gets to have her trooper flanking her here, that Darth Maul should have his as well. My Maul-Dalorian is really difficult to stand up, but it's no comparison to this General Grievous. This is actually the Bandai model kit. This is a custom cape that I found on eBay about a year and a half ago. I don't know if it's still available on there, and then this is just a painted Bandai kit, but I just think that this is the ultimate 12th scale Grievous, and this is the only one that I feel happy to display on my shelf because the Black Series one just is not properly scaled and just looks a little bit silly on the shelf, to be honest. Okay, try not to think about all of the amazing clone figures that are getting bumped on this shelf in order to fit Hondo Ohnaka, but this is just a character and a figure that I love looking at. I did replace his hand with a custom hand from a Marvel Legends figure. I just think it gives it so much more character, just having that little bit of animation in the hand instead of just a closed C-grip hand. You can also see that kind of demonstrated here with my custom Palpatine using a Fett clone head. This is a Snape Figuarts body, just the top half, and then the bottom skirt, I think it's from like an old Buffy figure. He'll go up here on the top, and then flanking him is going to be one of these custom Senate Commandos that I made. This is just a clone figure with a repainted head and shoulder pad that I got from a 3D printer. I wish I could remember where I bought that. Definitely one of the only custom clones that I've ever done. I'm pretty intimidated to try to paint the white of the clones, and so I think doing a blue figure just made me a lot more comfortable. This Target exclusive Clone Wars wave featuring Echo was probably one of the last really difficult waves of Black Series to get. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like every figure they've released since then has eventually become pretty easy to find, at least for a while before it goes out of stock a few months later. I try to find any excuse to show off this custom Shaq T by Tim's Toys, so she's gonna go on my Clone Wars shelf here. She just brings in so much amazing color, the oranges and the blues that are such a part of the Clone Wars identity. I just couldn't resist having her on the shelf. So that is all for my Clone Wars shelf series. Again, let me know what you think in the comments below. I do think that, I may have to do a clone exclusive shelf series just to really show off how many clone figures there are, but I'm really into these named characters and the unhelmeted characters. Please subscribe if you like these kinds of videos. I've been doing the shelf series for over a year. This is actually my 1-year anniversary of uploading my first video to YouTube, so I want to thank you guys for 12,000 subscribers in 12 months. I am so happy that you have all enjoyed what I've been making, and I hope to continue doing it for a very long time. Here are some other videos from my channel that you guys might enjoy, and I'll see you all next time.